Well, good morning, everybody. I want to talk to you about a qualitative research game. So, as John and Betty have already explained, gaming can be used in a wide variety of situations and applications. Mine is purely a qualitative one. There's only the one game. This is not a game that's developed for each individual project. Obviously, the content will vary, but the game itself stays the same. Um, Now, this particular game has been developed by Blau, who I do a lot of work with, along with Flex, who are an industrial design company, and Erasmus University in Holland. These games last typically between 1.5 and 2.5 hours. You might think 2.5 hours is quite a long time. Well, it is, but it's certainly a game that can keep people engaged for that period of time. We play the game in teams. There are two teams, and we have 2 or 3 players per team, which I'll show you in a moment. We also normally run this as in 3 phases of the game. The first phase we call analysis, where we're trying to find out what people think, attitudes, behaviors, issues, challenges, and so on. The synthesis is really more to do with trying to understand how things can be made better, very useful in NPD situation. And then we have a review phase at the end. Now, the other thing that we do is we have to convert the client's brief, the discussion guide, into a series of game tasks and challenges. And if there's any IP in this game, that's where it is. That is not an easy thing to do. It's quite challenging, takes quite a bit of time. But like with all games, we have a game board. Now, this is a game board that people will sit around. It has a start point, which is on the left, and we have an end point, which is on the right. You can probably see that small graphic of a cup. So that's the game board, and the way that it's played is we have the researcher, the games master, we have the respondents, who are the players, and we have some note takers. Now, it's important that we include those note takers because the nature of the game is that we play this at speed. What we're asking people to do is to think of as many things as they can, or to do something with within a restricted period of time. So the note takers are there to do the things the respondents can't do, which is to write stuff down. The gameplay is quite straightforward. It uses the conventional combination of tokens and also dice. And so to start playing this game, one of the teams would throw the dice. By the way, it takes only 2 or 3 minutes to introduce the game to people. The game players haven't met before, and it takes very little time for them to get used to what's going on. So they throw a dice, and they will take their counter. In this particular case, the counter will land on the purple square. You can see on the left-hand side there are some coloured rectangles. On each of those, there's a stack of cards, and each card contains a task. So what would happen is that if somebody landed on that particular square, then the question master would take that card, would turn it over, and there'd be something written on there. That's the first task. So this is an analysis task, and in this particular case, we're trying to find out the problems and frustrations of the insight show. So it's important that you give these things context. So the insight show is now an established part of the MR calendar, but nothing is perfect and everything can be improved. So in the next 60 seconds, list all the problems and frustrations that you have when visiting the insight show. Now what happens here is that the two teams will work independently. They will give their feedback to their note taker. Their note taker will write it down. So they're not doing it, if you like, in camera. They can be heard by other people, and they can be cheating. It wouldn't be a good game if people couldn't cheat. Then there may be a follow-on question, because it's not just a question of producing lists of things. We also need to be able to understand a little bit of the whys. So what we can do as a follow-up task to that particular one is, okay, I want you to select your 3 most significant problems or frustrations, and for each one, give 3 reasons why they're significant. And again, you have 60 seconds. So they will pick those 3 reasons that they've already given and give their 3 reasons why they are particularly significant. Now, in the synthesis phase, we could pick up on that issue and say, okay, you've won the Event of the Year award for the Insight Show 2014. Now, as head of the show, you are delighted, but what did you do? How did you achieve such a great result? So you have 2 minutes to describe how you made the show a winner. Again, it's too little time, but that's the point. We're not trying to get them to tell us chapter and verse as to how they did it, because it's imaginary anyway. What we want to know is, what are the key issues? What are the key ways in which they've addressed some of the problems in order to come up with a solution? So how does it work? Well, I'm not a psychologist, but I think most of us realise the way that our minds work is that we get top of mind stuff, which is the first little cloud that I've shown on this graphic. But as time goes on, we tend to rationalise those things, which is why I've made the final little graphic a square. And what we want here is, we don't want the rationalised response. And this is a chart that was used by Jane Woolley in a recent presentation. And what she was talking about was that the rational brain can't actually make a decision. It's the emotional brain that makes the decision. So what we're trying to do is, before it gets to that rational brain, we're trying to understand, well, what is the actual thought? What's there sitting right at the very beginning of the thought process? What we want to be able to do is to get all those initial thoughts out without them being rationalized. That's our goal. So that's what we're aiming to do. So how do we do it? Well, we just use time. We use a device which says, we're not going to allow you to think too much, to rationalize your thoughts. We want them to come out, we want you to say them, and then we want you to move on to the next one. So it's the two devices of time and also the use of teams, which I'll mention in a moment, which allows us to do that. It's that competitiveness. There is no, oh, that's not a very smart answer, I won't say it. There's no time to rationalize that. They just come out with what's important. And of course, we need to add the note taker. So the thought comes out, the note taker writes it down, the next thought comes out, and so on. I mentioned the teams. We work in teams. This might be a typical group of people, maybe a group of people in a focus group. Some people talk a lot, some people talk a bit, some people don't really talk very much at all. Putting them into teams and making them work with each other means they've got to talk to each other. So we're already engaging all of these people in the gaming process. And so we then set the team against another team. So this is the second device, time being the first one. The second device we use in gaming is, we're actually setting team versus team. So there is a competitive element in all of us. And when we play this game, it comes out very, very quickly. It's really exciting. We've got all the necessary game elements. We've got the randomness, we've got the die. We've got a goal. We have a start and we have a finish. We use time. We restrict time, as happens in many, many games. We've got some rules. We've got teams. Those little graphics there are to show happy people. People playing the game have fun. And there's no reason why people shouldn't enjoy the process. And in fact, it wouldn't work if people didn't have fun. If they didn't feel as though we're enjoying themselves and doing it, they wouldn't do it. They'd just stop. And also, you need some sort of reward, and we've got a cup in that particular aspect there. Now, the game elements that we can use anything. We've got the basics there, but we can customize what we do. And I've got at the top there, there's two. The first one is a shower cap, and the second one is a sort of cap that might be worn by a handyman or something. I did a project in Barcelona, and we were talking to designers for the company Rocker, who designed bathroom stuff. And I wanted them to put themselves into the mindset of the people who install the stuff they design, and also the people who use it. So I actually got them to wear these hats during the course of the game at different points. Okay, you are now the consumer, and now here's how you're going to take that particular persona for this particular task. And it's interesting how the views do change depending on which hat they put on. But again, it's a bit of gaming, it's a bit of fun. Where we've been doing a series of projects for the Driving Standards Agency with learner drivers, really trying to optimize the information they need, not only to learn to drive, but also to learn to drive and to drive safely over a longer period of time. What they know is that right at the outset, people will cram for their theory. They will also very often cram for their practical at the age of 17. And then that's it. They won't even think about safe driving again in the future. So this is a campaign to get people to engage with safe driving over the longer term. So the work we've been doing has allowed them to develop new online websites which allow learner drivers to do that. And the key about it is engagement, and that's what the key is to this particular approach that we take. People get engaged in the process. Now, what do you get out of it? Well, if you're asking people to give lists of stuff, to give as many things as you can in the next 60 seconds, you're going to get this sort of approach. You're going to get this happens to be a project we did for Tefal, which is all to do with the storage of pots and pans in the kitchen. One of the key insights here is that neither the pots and pans nor the kitchen is designed to store one in the other. So this was a question about the frustrations of keeping a tidy kitchen. This is another one, and the three that are circled are the three key ones that they mentioned. We also then start to get them to come up with particular ideas. This task was, okay, you've just bought a unique and fantastic pan from the store. What is it? Tell us what it's all about. And this is what they've done here. Our note takers in this particular instance were chosen because they could sketch. This was an NPD type of project. We also can get people to not only come up with solutions, but we can get them to create marketing campaigns. In this instance, the design they came up with was a pan that nested one inside the other, and you had a removable handle. But you can't just put these things in a box and hope for people to say, oh, I can see what that is. So what they designed here was a transparent box, so you can actually see the product inside, so you knew what you were going to buy. We asked how you might promote this particular product. One idea, quite a common one, is to have a salesman in the store. So you come down an escalator, and there is the chef who is demonstrating the product in store. Now, that particular project, we finished it about 3 years ago, which is why I can show you the detail now. And this is the product that was designed and developed by Tefal. It's called Ingenio, and you can see that it's basically stacking pans with removable handles. Also, the lids stack as well. So that's the product that came from this particular research project we did for Tefal. Now, I've worked with this for probably 5 years now. And during that time, we've had a whole range of different people play the game. Children, parents, adults, consumers, clients play it. It's great there's a lot of knowledge held by clients, particularly people in product and brand teams. And this is the sort of tool that you can use to get that knowledge to come out in a way that it wouldn't normally. If they had a meeting sitting around the table and they said, who's got any great ideas on XYZ? The normal rules of being in a group would apply. I'm not going to say anything because he's my boss, and I don't want him to know I'm actually not very smart. I won't say anything because it's going to sound daft, or I'm going to talk a lot because I think I'm better than all these other people. So with the game approach, all that is removed. We've had buyers, we've had employees, game developers. This is online game developers, yes, sitting around a table, because this is a live board game that we play, which has worked really well. Designers and advocates, and I'll come on and talk about advocates in just a second. And what sort of things have we done? Did a very interesting project for Lego, where we were looking at the way in which Lego is packed, and the project was done with both parents and with kids. We've done some work on car seats. Although this was originally designed as an NPD tool, it doesn't have to be. I now use it for any qualitative assignment. It works everywhere. So you can use it on intangibles like insurance, bathrooms, fruit juice, online games, lawnmowers, safe driving, which I mentioned earlier on, baby buggers. These are some of the projects that I've worked on in the last few years using the game. My latest development, I've called it Game Changer, and this is something that I went down to Sao Paulo a few months ago to present at the Insight Innovation Exchange. Went down really well. I started with ABBA and ended with Queen in my presentation. Has to go down well if you use both of those. And this was where I've taken my game and I've added brand advocates to it. So it's this combination that I've called Game Changer. So let's talk about advocates for a moment. The key thing about an advocate is they're enthusiastic. They share their enthusiasm and they're influential amongst their social network. And that could be an online or face-to-face social network. I'm just talking about all the people they know. We all know people who we go to ask advice. And we take that advice and think, okay, because so-and-so has said it to us, we're going to apply some sort of value to that advice. In Blau, we call these people super promoters, and they have those three key elements. We also know about word of mouth. We have people who influence and the people who are influenced. There's a lot of work being done by people like Ipsos and TNS just to show how powerful the whole aspect of word of mouth is. In most markets that I've looked at, you get maybe 10 to 20% of people who are influencers, more if it's Apple. If you're looking at Apple and Apple owners, you get many, many more influencers than that. But in most markets, 10 to 20% would be influenced. Therefore, 90% of people are the influenced. And you could ask yourself the question, why bother talking to anybody else? If everybody's 90% of people are going to be influenced by the 10%, why talk to the 90? But what we're having here is a combination of gameplay and enthusiasts. Now, the gameplay itself is engaging. The enthusiasts are already engaged. So, pow, wow, what a wonderful combination to get a highly engaged audience with a highly engaging technique talking about stuff. It's so different to running an ordinary focus group, I can tell you. The insights that you get, really quite amazing. And the final thought I'll leave you with, sadly, Ian Banks is no longer with us, favourite author of mine. In The Player of Games, he said, all reality is a game. Physics at its most fundamental, the very fabric of our universe, results directly from the interaction of certain fairly simple rules and chance. The same description may be applied to the best, most elegant, and both intellectually and aesthetically satisfying games. So I will leave you with that thought. Thanks for listening, and I'll be with you again soon.